Live. I'm your host, Doug Sparks, editor-in-chief of Merrimack Valley Magazine. Lou, how are you holding up?
I'm doing okay. Doing okay to a little technical problems today.
Yeah,
but I was doing okay.
Yeah, a little crazy today, but that's in the spirit of the week and
right.
the everything that's going on.
Dealing with chaos.
I've been up since 2 a.m. with my toddler who is allergic to sleep. Hates sleep like some kids fear monsters.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is.
Is this newly developed during this time?
It's been maybe the past year.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I vaguely remember a time we would brag because other parents would say, "Oh, our kids can't sleep," and we would kind of cross our arms and go, "Ho, ho, ho, we do everything right. We don't let them watch TV past blah blah blah."
Yep.
And we were kind of following the rules, and she seemed to be following the rules with the sleep. And then she will wake up wide awake at 2 or 3 in the morning, and there's nothing we can do except play with her, or she's going to wake up the baby and tear the house apart. Nothing we can do. So as I think I've said before, I can tolerate lack of sleep a little bit more than my wife. So I get up and I sit with her on the couch and keep her occupied and keep the house from burning down.
Sit down and binge something on Netflix. Or?
Yeah, I try. If we put something on TV, she'll stay up later.
Yeah,
she'll stay up later. So I will actually just sit there and talk with her.
Mm-hmm.
No TV, no music, and we've tried everything. We tried. YouTube, binaural beats. We tried ambient music.
Sleep
we've tried
meditation.
Being strict. We've tried being angry. We've tried being sad. We've tried this. We've tried that. The only thing that I found that works is for me to make the sacrifice.
Yeah.
And sit there with her.
What do you talk with her about?
I should record that sometime because I'm sure it sounds pretty crazy. Mm-hmm. But from her world, in her world, there's her stuffed animals.
Yep.
She loves animals, so we talk about animals a lot. She talks about her body parts, like her feet, which seem to have their own personalities.
Yep.
We talk about what we're going to do in the day, but mostly I think it's just kind of babble.
Yeah.
It's what it reminds me of. Ever seen like sticky hands in Tai Chi?
Yeah.
You know what sticky hands in Tai Chi? Like it's a little bit like that. We're just kind of pushing words back and forth to each other and playing with the words rather than, did you study arithmetic today? It's nothing like that. It's just playing with words.
Yep.
I think, and then she'll eventually kind of settle, and then I have to settle, and usually by then the sun is coming up. And, and I'm in for it. So I've been up, and I feel pretty good. I feel pretty energetic, given the lack of sleep.
Probably hard to believe right now, but I'll tell you, as a father of 2 adult children, you will look back on these times longingly.
Okay. I've heard that, too. I find it a little bit hard to believe in some ways. There are definitely aspects of it that I enjoy.
Yep.
So my guest today is Kesiah Bascom, and she's the owner of Off Beet Compost. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Hi.
Okay, so not everybody who's listening is going to know you. So I'm just going to actually start by asking you, what is Off Beet Compost and what do you do?
Sure. Yeah. So Off Beet Compost, we are diverting household, restaurant, and commercial food scraps from going to traditional waste facilities such as landfills and incinerators, and instead we're bringing them to get composted or turned into fertilizer, a nutrient-rich material that helps plants grow. So the idea is that when it's going to a landfill or an incinerator, it's having really bad effects on the environment. But by diverting that, we're able to reintroduce food waste, turn it into compost, and reintroduce it to the local soil so that plants can thrive and that we can have food that enriches our bodies and enriches our souls too.
Yeah. So the organization itself is based in Lowell, but you service other communities, right?
Yeah. So we serve a lot of the Merrimack Valley region at this point. We started off in Lowell and some of the surrounding towns, and we've expanded out as far as Haverhill and Boxford. We serve Andover, North Andover, a lot of the towns.
Yeah, I think you're in Chelmsford too because I see your bins on my street, right? Is that possible?
Yep, we're in Chelmsford.
Okay.
Yep, Chelmsford and Kingsborough.
Yeah, and so how is this situation, this pandemic or the COVID-19 outbreak, however you want to say it, how has it impacted your business?
Yeah, I mean, it's impacted everybody's lives and businesses. And so right from the beginning, we're considered an essential business because we're a waste hauler essentially, and also, it's so important to be thoughtful about being safe and protecting our team, and also protecting our community members and our customers. So in mid-March, when the governor had said that folks should shut down or work from home, we decided to take a 2-week break because we thought that would be the most responsible thing to make sure that we weren't in any way spreading the virus to anybody. And then we just recently opened up again after we all self-isolated, but we did do it. We've modified our service. So we used to have 2 different plans where one was folks could get a 5-gallon bucket. This is the household collection plan. They would collect their food scraps in it and set it out once a week, and we'd come through, collect the food scraps, and leave the bucket behind. And then we also have a remote drop-off program. So right now, just given the uncertainties around COVID-19, we have only reopened the remote drop-off program, but it's for everybody. And then it has given us the opportunity to focus on other aspects of our business. So we give compost back to our customers twice a year. So we're still sifting a lot of compost. Our office is located in a landscaping yard, so we've been focused on building that out into a really cool community composting site. So we're working on that right now and building a garden. And then as a pivot point as well, and as a response to COVID-19, we have a fleet of vehicles, we have a team, so we're actually developing out a grocery delivery program as well, because it's one of the most terrifying things about this time is going to the grocery store, because it's the one place where everybody has to go.
So what's that going to involve?
Yeah, so we have a lot of we used to, before all of this, we would go to the farmers market in Lowell as well at mill number 5, and we had a drop-off program where people could come actually interact with us, and we would take their food scraps and clean the buckets out. So because of that, we've built really strong relationships with a lot of our farmer friends, and this is again affecting everybody. So we've been in conversation with some of our farmer friends, and in mid to late May, we'll be able to provide sort of a market source for the vegetables that they have as well. So folks can order veggies and mushrooms through a platform, and then we'll take those orders and we'll aggregate everything, and we'll be able to disperse it through our vehicles as we're on our route. And we have a route optimization system in place already because of what we do with Off Beet Compost.
Sure. Do you have a sense of the time frame on that?
Yeah, it won't be until late May once farmers have some produce growing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. So you grew up on a farm. You grew up on a farm in New Hampshire, right?
Close. Yeah, you did your research. So my family, my aunts and uncles, they grew up on a farm in New Hampshire. So they're like hardy New England farmer folk, and most of them left the farm and went on to do other things. But they instilled in all of us like this passion for growing food and just local food and supporting farmers. So we always had a huge garden where I grew up, and I started growing food in high school. I had my own little garden, and then from there I became a farmer for a little bit, and I've worked for Mill City Grows, which is based in Lowell, and built a bunch of community gardens.
Yeah, we've met before. You probably don't remember because I was actually a student in one of your classes. I took the worm composting class, the vermicomposting class.
That's awesome. I remember you had emailed me after that.
Right. Yeah, we talked about some story ideas, and I ordered some red wigglers, and we have a worm bin out in the yard. The worms snuck away this winter, but they will be back.
Congratulations! I'm so proud that hopefully I helped influence that decision.
Yeah, so actually it brings up something I wanted to ask, if you don't mind. A lot of people are stuck home now with kids and with their family. are people asking you the sort of activities that might be healthy for their yard or their environment? And do you have any ideas of working with young people right now to get them out and safely, safely doing fun things in the yard that will also maybe produce food or be good for the soil?
Yeah, actually, we've had a few requests of folks who had asked us to do maybe a Zoom, so an online workshop about composting, or make some kind of video example of how to compost. It's so interesting how everybody's sort of adapting to online technology. Right now, we're really focused on restructuring our business to respond to the customers that we already have. But we do, in May, we're actually working with Revision Solar, and we're going to do like a quick little tutorial and interview with them. And there's definitely some programs rolling out.
Okay. So you went to Northeastern, and you did not go to school for agriculture. Is that correct?
That is correct. Yeah, I went to school. Originally, I thought I was going to go into adoption and foster care, and so I went to school for social work, and I did a lot of youth development work at school, and then so that actually sort of influenced working in youth development and community development. So when I graduated, I found a job that was working in youth development and agriculture, and I thought that was so amazing because it combined one of my favorite hobbies, growing food, and then youth development, which had sort of been the path that my background had taken. And with those two things combined, it launched me into this career of growing food and community engagement.
Yeah, I mean, this is not a traditional business the way I would conceive of it, in that there is some kind of strong educational component to it. Is that right for me to assume?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
Yeah, there's an educational component to the work you're doing now as an entrepreneur.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so I think, and technically, so we're not the only composting company out there. There are a bunch of them around the nation. And I think in a lot of ways, community composters are doing a really good job in engaging with the community, and especially our individual households and customers who are a part of this. They have this real strong desire and passion to do something for the environment. So I think we're always consistently engaging with them and having conversations with them about the work that we're doing, but also we have gone into schools and worked with students, talk to them about composting and how important it is and how it's part of the food system, and climate change. And it's just, you see on a large scale the way our nation handles recycling and trash hauling. People are really disconnected from it. They just throw their trash in a bin, they put it out on the curb, and there's no thought to where it's going, no thought about sorting it out or anything. And so I think composting causes people to slow down and take an extra step in thinking about where their food is going and what type of impact it's going to have on the environment. And the more that we can help people think that through and feel connected to the food system and just the grander scheme of waste, then I think folks will feel more empowered to make change and, realize that even their small 10 pounds of food waste that they're disposing of weekly is going to have a larger impact on the environment that's really positive. So yeah, we try to do a lot of that because for us it's not only about, we want to earn money and generate money to pay ourselves and reinvest that back into the community, but we also, we want to create a clean, green planet for the future.
Sure. Yeah, and I'm curious how this time, what we're going through now, is impacting people's understanding of this process. I mean, I feel as though I'm fairly well educated on what I ought to be doing to be eco-friendly, but I'm not very good at it. And part of it is maybe I'm letting myself off the hook, but I have a baby and a toddler, and I work a lot, and I'm just tired. And it's hard for me to, I haven't been a good, steward of the earth over the past few years, and I'm the first to admit it. But that's changed over the past 2 weeks, and maybe that's just because I'm just with my family more, and we have more time, and we're sort of forced to slow down. Are you seeing anything like that? Are you seeing some sort of surge in interest or heightened interest in these sort of topics because of what's going on right now with the pandemic?
That's interesting. I think not necessarily composting specifically, although our customers are, everybody has more food scraps now because everybody is cooking from home more, and we have had more sign-ups. I think some of the conversations that I've found really interesting are first, as a nation, I think we're starting to shift into thinking about who is actually an essential worker and where our food is coming from and how that gets to us. And I think it's something, unfortunately, that we have taken for granted in the past, and now we're realizing, oh, wait, like the people who grow the food must be protected. The people who are selling the food, they need to be protected because that's something that we all really need. It's so essential to us. And even on the other side, with waste hauling, on trash recycling and composting, these are all such important parts of the system that I think in the past have sort of been pushed to the background and now are at the forefront of everybody's minds. And I do agree. I see a lot more people growing their own food. They have the time to go outside and build their own garden and are thinking about access to especially fresh vegetables. If we're being encouraged to not go to the grocery store on a regular basis, those are the things that expire the most quickly. I don't know how to say that. And so how can you access that easily and safely? Well, by growing your own food, right? So I think, it's definitely something that's more at the forefront of people's minds now.
Sure. What advice or what are you telling your customers about how to safely handle, like you put these very distinct looking, I think they're kind of black and yellow buckets out with the compost. What are you telling them? Are you telling them to bring them out with gloves? Like what is there any special instructions now given the sort of crisis we're facing?
Yeah, especially so with the remote drop-off, one of our large concerns was there was an article that came out about plastic and how long COVID-19 could stick on plastic. So we're paying really close attention to cleaning everything and making sure it's not getting transferred. So all of our remote drop-off stations, we have a bucket of a bleach solution in there, and we have told everyone, we have signage there. After you dump your scraps, make sure you spray any of the touch points on that cart. And we tell people, wear gloves, wash your hands, follow all those rules, sanitize afterwards, before and after. If there's anybody else at the station, remain 6 feet apart. So we're taking it really seriously.
Sure. So one thing I people can probably tell from the picture of you, but you're young. I'm not going to ask you your age, but you're a young person, and I just point that out because I don't think it's typical for you stand out as being an entrepreneur. I mean, you say that there are other composting places like this around the United States, but as far as I know in this region, you're the only one, correct?
In the Merrimack Valley region, we're the only ones who are serving this area specifically.
Yeah. So how did you feel you kind of developed as an entrepreneur, and what about nurturing the kind of business side of yourself from the beginning, forgetting about COVID-19 for now? Was that like difficult to kind of go from social work and being very, very focused on the community to now having to, I don't know, do budgets or whatever else comes in, kind of risk money and keep people, paid so that they can eat and, go to the movies and all that kind of stuff?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I think my past job, again, was at Mill City Grows, and I was a community program manager there, and it's an awesome nonprofit. I'm actually on the board now. And I think a lot of my jobs have put me in roles where I've been able to learn a lot. And I think, I don't know, at some point, I never thought I was going to be an entrepreneur, but at some point I was learning and absorbing, and you get to this point where you start to realize maybe there are cracks and holes in these systems that we have in place, and you might not be able to address it through the exact way that you want to in the position that you're in. And so I thank every single experience that I've ever had. It's not been a straight path for me. I've done all types of strange work. I was in Nicaragua for 2 years in Peace Corps, and I've waitressed, and all of those things have sort of compiled together and to this point where I realized on different levels I was learning about food on a local level and also on a more global scale. And Mill City Grows sent me through a leadership program where they actually told you to look at an issue that you found was really that resonated with you and come up with a solution for it. And so for me, it was composting. And originally we had talked about doing it through Mill City Grows, and then it just made sense to try to branch off on my own and do it, to start a company. I think for me, I'm definitely more on the creative side. I have these ideas and I want to execute them, and I have a vision and I can't wait for that vision to become reality. I definitely get bogged down with all of the behind-the-scenes work and the paperwork and the account management. So that has, in some ways, been a shift for me. But in the nonprofit realm, you're still required to, do a lot of reporting and a lot of evaluations. So I think, in any field that you're in, there are these challenges, and you kind of have to deal with them in order to get to the larger goal.
Sure.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes perfect sense. So out of curiosity, what was Nicaragua like?
Oh, that was such an amazing experience. I lived in this tiny community up in the northern part of Nicaragua, and there was a farming community. They put me there. They said that I was a volunteer in agriculture, and I view it more as a cultural exchange because I went there and folks there had been farming for years, so there wasn't a lot of knowledge that I could bring in about agriculture, especially in a region that I'd never grown food. So I think I was able to learn a lot from the community there as much as they hopefully learned from me, and I feel like I gained family there. I haven't gone back. I told them I'd go back within 5 years, and I think I'm on year 6 now.
Hey, you've been busy.
So, yeah, I've been busy. But I learned a lot about worm composting when I was living there, because a lot of people had their own cows, and then there was cow manure, and they were turning that into compost to reintroduce back into their soil. And then there were a few people who had learned how important red wigglers were, and they were introducing that to the cow manure to add a whole added layer of nutrients. So I remember one of our field trips, we went to a farm where he had a whole closed-loop system where he was growing food, and then the food waste was going to the worms, and it was so amazing, and that had always stuck with me. And I had never known that was going to impact me in the way that I had a composting business, but it really has.
Interesting.
So
So,
cool.
and by the way, I tend to think everybody kind of knows what I'm talking about most of the time, but they don't.
Mm-hmm.
And I've mentioned the worm composting in the show so far today. So just in short, for people who are like, wait a minute, why are they talking about worms? What is worm composting?
Worm composting it's a method in which you feed your leftover food scraps to a certain type of earthworm called a red wiggler, and they consume the food waste really quickly, more quickly than a regular earthworm, and they ingest it and they poop it out. But that poop is considered black gold, so it's super high in nutrients, and it's really great to reintroduce back to the soil because plants love it. And it can be used for potting mixes. It can be used directly into a garden. Yeah.
So you mentioned you feel sort of by nature drawn to the kind of creative idea aspects of this business. And I was just speaking with a mutual friend recently who mentioned, are you involved in the theater as well? Do you do performance art?
Oh, not professionally. I have friends so my friend Krista Brown, she has the Free Soil Collective.
Yeah, I think she's actually going to be on next week, totally randomly. I didn't know you guys were friends.
Yeah, we're friends. And one of her when she launched that nonprofit, one of her first projects was a play called Hair Tales, and she called upon some of her friends, myself being one of them, to get up on stage and tell our story. So I've acted, but it's never been a dream or career idea of mine. It's just been somehow I get pulled into these things.
Okay.
I think it's just because I remain open, and so if somebody calls on me, I mean, I think it's exciting to have the opportunity to get up on stage and be able to say that I did that in my life.
Sure. I mean, it must make sense to you. I mean, you mentioned you have this creative side in terms of entrepreneurship. You're drawn to that, and you're going to be drawn to it in other realms as well.
Yeah, for sure.
So, as far as what you're right now, you own this company, but you are involved. You mentioned you're on the board of Mill City Grows. Are you involved with other community organizations?
There's actually a national community composting coalition, and I am on the steering committee for that as well. So we have monthly meetings, and that's been really helpful to learn and hear about what other composters are doing around the nation. That's really helped me develop and grow the business that we have. And then I think I stay in tune with a lot of the organizations in Lowell. I think, like Coalition for a Better Acre, CMAA, a lot of the community organizations here are so important and amazing, and I think that Lowell is really good at creating a tight network. I'm not as involved as I used to be because the business takes up a lot of my time, but I feel like I have really good relationships with folks who are working in different organizations.
Do you have time to sit back and reflect about where this is all going? In other words, what's the goal for Off Beet Compost? If you could just reach some sort of ideal, even an unattainable ideal, what does it look like? What does it do?
I think we're moving towards that, and it's true. It's easy to get bogged down in the nitty-gritty, but from the beginning, I'm a person of the soil. I love putting my hands in the dirt. So from the very beginning, the ultimate goal was to find a parcel of land and be able to compost on a large scale. And that has been a really tricky thing. So what I've always wanted to do is have one large composting facility that's sort of outside of the city, and then a small, more educationally based composting facility in the heart of the city where people can come and actively be a part of composting and see the entire process. I think it would be so cool if students could come on field trips and see what we're doing. And so we're working towards that. We grew a lot last year. We actually purchased another company who was doing the same thing in Lawrence, and that helped us grow. So we sort of moved away from doing all the composting ourselves to focus on stabilizing the business. But now we're back at this position where we can focus on creating a really awesome product of our own. And so our space in Lowell, we're working to build that out into a community composting site, and that's really exciting. And that's a first step in the whole picture. And I think once people can see exactly what it is that we're doing, I think they'll be able to understand and want to support us going to that next level of building out a larger facility. So I think that's the ultimate goal, and creating jobs that are sustainable where people can really earn a living, and that's the goal.
Yeah. So before I open things up and ask Lou if he has any questions, because Lou always has interesting questions, how do people get in touch with you? What's the website address? Is there a Facebook page? Are you on social media? What's the best way to find out day-to-day what's going on with Off Beet Compost?
Yeah, thanks for that question. So we're active on Instagram and Facebook, and it's Off Beet Compost. And Off Beet is a play on words, so it's 2 E's like the vegetable, OFFBEET, compost. And that's our website as well, offbeetcompost.com. And we try to post pretty regularly about what we're doing.
Very cool. So go follow them. Lou, do you have any questions?
Yeah, Kesiah, the extent of my agricultural experience is raiding my Irish grandfather's garden when I was a kid. But I often think that maybe I should put some beds up and grow some stuff. And it seems like a good year to start that. We've got time on our hands at the beginning of the season. What's the primer? What's the advice? How do you get someone started growing your
Yeah,
own food?
I would say, first of all, don't freak out. I think people are so intimidated by growing food, but remember, plants grow on their own. They want to grow. So no matter what, even if you're not following the rules exactly by the book, or you're not an experienced farmer from generations ago, the plants will help you do the work. The other part is make sure that you do have a good mixture of loam, which is a good sandy soil mix, and mix that with compost, so that right from the start you're giving your plants a really good high nutrient so that they will be able to grow. I would start there, and then there are so many guides online for growing food. I think one of the best ones is the Growing Guide, which the Food Project created. They're located in Boston, and they give you really good step-by-step directions for each type of plant that you can grow in New England.
All right, what's my, I've got my raised beds, and I got to fill them up. What's my recipe for what I'm filling them with to start?
Yeah, so you need a mixture of organic loam and then compost. And I would say, I think it's 30% compost that you need, and then 70% loam mix. And that'll be a good recipe to get your plants growing.
Nice.
And how do we deal with the groundhogs? That's something I haven't figured out in my neighborhood.
Oh my gosh, they're definitely hard, but raised bed gardens are the way to go, especially if you live in an urban environment. First of all, you don't want to be planting directly in the soil there because it could be contaminated, since a lot of these cities are post-industrial, so you don't know what's in that soil. So if you're building a raised garden, then you're going to be building it above the ground. So hopefully that will in some ways dissuade a groundhog from getting into your garden. And then you can create some type of barrier to also help keep them away.
Are there any plants or flowers or herbs that you recommend that people grow, not just to eat, but also because they're good for the environment? Like maybe they attract bees, or they attract butterflies, or they just make the neighborhood healthier?
Oh, interesting. There's different plants that I've learned about that help sort of keep pests away. So marigolds and nasturtiums, they're types of flowers that help dissuade pests from coming through. I am not the best expert in. There are definitely, like, I think bee balm and then maybe borage are good plants for attracting pollinators like bees, but I am not the most well versed in that. Somebody who you could talk to is probably Red Antler Apothecary, who's located at Mill Number 5. They have a lot of knowledge around that.
We've had them on the show before, and it's one of the biggest shows we've ever done. So we'll have them on again at some point. Shout out to Red Antler. Hope you guys are, to Rachel and Rick. Hope you guys are listening right now.
Yeah.
So your overall feeling during our situation right now is one of optimism. It sounds, at least what I'm getting from the tone of your voice is you're here and maybe even kind of growing or thriving in this environment. Is that safe to say?
I wouldn't say that we're thriving, but I would say that we feel really positive. That we've experienced an overwhelming amount of support from our community and customers, because honestly, we are all in this together, and nobody went to, well, maybe somebody went to school, but I don't know of anybody who went to school for pandemics, so we're all trying to figure out how to work through this, how to support each other. I think more and more it's becoming clear that it's important that as a community we really have to work together. So I think there's a lot of things, there are a lot of unknowns, but I do think that the Merrimack Valley is a really strong community, and that we'll be able to come out of this with some lessons learned and go forward, hopefully with strength and hopefully some support around the environment, some more knowledge. And,
Well, that's as good a way as any to to end this, and I really appreciate you taking some time. I know you're super busy, and calling into the show, it means a lot to me, so I appreciate it. I hope some point when this is all over, you come back on, and we can get an update.
Yeah, I would love that.
Okay.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Sure, yeah. I very much appreciate it. Thank you so much. All right. Thank you. Kesiah Bascom from Off Beet Compost. Go to their webpage, Instagram, Facebook, look them up, and see what they're doing, because they're doing good work. MVM wrote an article on them in 2019. It's in the comment section right now, so you can go ahead and check that out. All right. Lou, I will see you next week.
Another one in the books. We'll talk next week.
Another in the books.